association with Air. Watch every UEFA Champions League and Europa League game on the Air Sport Pack.
This is News Talk.
You are welcome along to Off the Ball. We've got a busy show for you this evening. The Champions Cup weekend has left the Irish provinces in pretty good shape. We're going to talk to Stephen Ferris and Eddie O'Sullivan. We have midfield Kerry Maestro himself, David Moran, here in studio for you around 20 to 9 or so. And then Martin O'Neill, everybody. So the Martin O'Neill situation, it seems, has reached its conclusion for the time being. We'll talk to Luke Edwards from the Daily Telegraph, who had that exclusive that O'Neill was staying last night, and we'll see what he makes of the whole situation. It seems he's got pretty good links with O'Neill generally, and has had a feel for his thinking over the last few days. We'll talk to Philip Quinn as well, the FAI. Probably have a question or two to answer, and then Pat Nevin on a pretty remarkable game at Anfield yesterday. Text number is 53106. We're on Twitter at Off the Ball, and we are on Facebook Live in our brand new shiny, it's not even that new anymore, but we are here in our shiny TV studio where OTB AM is coming at you every morning 7:45. So we are here now for the first time. I think Nathan did the show in here on Thursday evening, and now here we are. Richie McCormick, hello.
It only counts because we're here now, Joe.
It's real now.
And Nathan presented one as kind of a trial run. You know, that's the kind of thing that gives off. It's clear that they were kind of.
That's exactly what Thursday was. Thursday was that trial run, wasn't it?
Just making sure that everything works okay more than anything else.
Yeah.
And Kevin Kilban, hello.
Hi, Joe. You all good?
Yeah, very good. So, Richie, your first story, you might as well take us through the first story, because I guess it's our top of the show talking points. So Stoke have found their manager.
Yeah, it's their third, possibly fourth choice, depending on who you believe. Paul Lambert, he will watch his new Stoke Chargers from the stands at Old Trafford tonight. Stoke start tonight's meeting with Manchester United, third from bottom in the Premier League table. That's a scale of the job that Lambert has ahead of him. He was appointed the successor to Mark Hughes today, with Vice Chairman John Coates saying they were determined to hire a manager with Premier League experience. As we know, Republic of Ireland boss Martin O'Neill most recently, and his Espanyol manager Quique Sanchez Flores both turned the job down. Derby manager Gary Rowett was also one of the names in the frame to succeed Hughes there. For what it's worth, the teams are in for tonight's game. David De Gea starts in goal for Manchester United. They've got a back four of Antonio Valencia, Phil Jones, Chris Smalling and Luke Shaw. Nemanja Matic and Paul Pogba are in midfield, along with Juan Mata, with Jesse Lingard and Anthony Martial either side of Romelu Lukaku. For Stoke, Jack Butland is in goal for them. Their new signing Bauer starts at right full, with Kurt Zouma, Bruno Martins-Inny and Josh Tymon making up their back four. It's Darren Fletcher against his former side and Joe Allen in midfield. In front of them, Xherdan Shaqiri, Stephen Ireland yet again in the Stoke side, Eric Choupo-Moting, and they're in behind Peter Crouch. It's reported that O'Neill will sign his long mooted contract extension before next Wednesday's UEFA Nations League draw, and that takes place in Switzerland. Back to tonight's game, and a United victory would bring them to within 12 points of leaders Manchester City. The runaway leaders suffered their first defeat of the season with a 4-3 loss to Liverpool in a game we brought you live from Anfield yesterday, but it's a defeat regardless of opposition that Pep Guardiola says he had to be prepared for.
But you have to live. During the season is today in the real world is unexpected to, especially in that league with a lot of games, with a tough 2 months in the past, with a lot of 4 competitions, and it's so difficult to maintain against good teams, you know, to be every time no lose. These kind of things must happen, and now is analyze the tactical way, the reason why, and be positive and think in Newcastle. That is only we can do.
So the O'Neill situation, interesting, he's going to sign this contract. I would suspect the FAI have said, Martin, you are now signing this contract, not because it really guarantees any more security from an FAI point of view with regard to keeping O'Neill. It seems, you know, he seems to have a clause in his contract which allows him to talk to any club.
I think we would have known that had been there anyway, wouldn't we?
That's interesting, but the difference will be potentially in compensation. So you've been trying to do a bit of digging here in this situation.
No, I don't know.
You have. It was reported. Have you not? You're shaking your head now.
No. I just think
it was reported though that if Flores was going to go to
I think
Stoke, there would be a €4 million compensation paid to Espanyol. Whereas if O'Neill was technically out of contract, the FAI would get nothing. And this is an organisation that I know I couldn't find the most recent up-to-date figures, but we're 40 million in debt towards the end of 2016, start of 2017. So, you know, I don't know how many million might have come the FAI's way. Do you?
Well, no.
What's your feel?
I'd certainly feel that if he was under contract, there would have to be some sort of compensation in place. And given the fact is that we haven't qualified for the World Cup, and we know full well what it means with not qualifying, i.e., potentially 5-6 million euros what it would have cost us. So that money, if there would have been a 2 or 3 million, 4 million, whatever it would be in place, it's nothing for Stoke, and the FA would know that. It's any sort of fee like that would be nothing to a Premier League club, regardless of what level that they're at. So I think in general, if there would be some sort of compensation in place if Martin O'Neill were to leave, then that just makes sense from all parties. Yeah.
So you think it's very unlikely that the FAI and O'Neill, if they had signed the contract maybe after the Wales game when they said they were having this agreement, it's very, very unlikely there would have been a clause saying no compensation due to the FAI if Martin O'Neill leaves?
Yeah, I find that very, very unlikely. Yeah, okay. Of course, because I think in general, there are a lot of business heads within the FAI that know full well what it means, what staying in the Premier League, first of all, mean to a club in general, and they know full well what sort of packages are in place to other managers. So if our manager is sought after, then of course they're quite within the right to put some sort of compensation in place.
And you think 1-2 million minimum?
Well, you would think so. That's what I think. Maybe again, I don't know the figures. I generally don't know any figures. I don't know if anything has been written into Martin O'Neill's contract that he's about to sign. But I would imagine, in general, yes, there has to be something in place.
That'll be standard.
I'd say 2 million minimum. You know full well. 4 million doesn't seem a lot to me for Kike Flores Sanchez. What's his name again?
Sanchez Flores.
Sanchez Flores. I get that right.
Tough name.
I'll get that.
Me all weekend.
Yeah, Sanchez Flores. Just let's keep it with that one. Yeah, Kike. Yeah. I think in general, 4 million. It's not a lot. Again, Stoke wouldn't balk at that. There's no issues with 4 million to be spending from that sort of side of it. So in general, it's the same. It's the same, or the same should stand for Martin O'Neill if they were to take him away from the FAI.
What do you think made him turn around and say, "Do you know what? I think I want to honour this verbal agreement to a contract"? Because that's after endless conversations.
Yeah, we could all guess at anything there. Length of contracts, perhaps, that he would be offered from Stoke, perhaps as well. Of course, that agreement that he had in place with the FAI as well. That no matter what we all think, it must have been weighing on him. It must have been in his head that I have give this agreement, or I've got this agreement in place, and I all of a sudden now have got to maybe go back on what I've currently said, or what I've constantly said throughout, that this agreement's in place. I'm a man of my word. That must have played in, regardless of what we think. He has spoken to them, so maybe that goes out the window a little bit, and maybe that can be thrown back at me. But it must have been in his mind. It must have been, because he's give his word, and he's constantly said, Martin, I'm a man of my word. I have said that is in place, so that must have been in the. But I do think as well, just off that, if they're offering him a 3-year contract where he's getting stability for himself and his staff, then that might have been a different situation.
Well, the Telegraph piece. We'll speak to Luke Edwards at 7:30. The Telegraph piece, which just seems certainly like Luke has been speaking either to O'Neill himself or people in the O'Neill camp. It cites both things. It says that one of the key reasons is, quote, he did not want to break the verbal agreement he had given the FAI. Like, you kind of think, why? Like, it's emerged over the weekend. He spoke to Everton. He's basically interviewed for the Everton job as well. Interviewed for the Stoke job.
But you can't
so when did it occur to him that he had a verbal agreement? Did he only remember the other night?
No, I think you can't rest on that. But all I'm saying is, it must have been in his mind. He knows full well that what he said in the past, and what his word or what he perceives his word to actually be. So that must have been in his mind to a certain extent. But yeah, I'm with you.
The piece also says length of contract at Stoke was another issue.
I think it must have been.
So I think that's more the issue here.
Well, perhaps it is, but again, we're all guessing, aren't we? Because we don't know for sure.
Well, and also, whose fault is that? Like, Martin O'Neill, come on, he hasn't spoken. He hasn't said a word. The FAI have not said a word. I
think that was our issue from the start, though, wasn't it?
The Telegraph piece says, the Northern Irishman made up his mind on Friday that he was staying with Ireland only for Stoke, as revealed by Telegraph Sport, to make renewed efforts to tempt him away on Saturday.
Yeah.
Really? So he'd made up his mind on Friday, arrived at the journalists' banquet, said nothing to anybody about intending to stay, and then Stoke came back from on Saturday.
Yeah.
I think really, if he had made up his mind to stay on Friday, then he would have said so to journalists. The issue on Friday was it didn't look like he was going to get the job. Kike Sanchez Flores had the gig.
Well done. I got it right there.
Tons of charm.
Yeah.
But we're guessing because neither the FAI nor the O'Neill camp have actually spoken about the situation. One last point, because we can end up talking about this.
No, I think a lot of it we will be guessing until the official statements are made. Yeah. Then we'll get a bit more clarity on it.
I'm sure we'll get one though. Like, we'll get a statement that he signed a new contract, we'll get a statement that he's fully committed to the Ireland job, etc., etc. We're not going to get a statement, I would imagine, about how we ended up in this scenario whereby he was playing, in and out with Stoke.
There has to be a certain amount of spin that's going to be put on this statement anyway, and there'll be a lot said around it as well.
It's not going to recover the situation,
and the amount of pieces that's been written over the weekend as well, and over the last 3 or 4 days, there's been so much said. So many different journalists have had to take. So many different ex-players have had to say on it as well.
Well, one of the things Richard Dunn said was on Thursday. It will be very difficult now. Do we have the clip, JP, to hand? The Richard Dunn clip? Just about the difficulty for O'Neill to go back in and demand commitment from the players. This was Richard Dunn. No, we don't have it. We do have it. 5 seconds.
That's a lot of.
It's this new studio. Honestly, I blame.
Will I press on, or will?
But
you
it's
have
something that Darren O'Dea was talking about. He was talking to the lads upstairs in 98 yesterday about it.
We have it.
The fact that coming back in, you're asking a lot of the players to buy into it when you've gone, do you know what? I kind of fancy one of these jobs.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how big a deal that is. Richard Dunn raised that issue as well. You can give us your take after.
It's a difficult one for him to come back into. I think, well, if he set his mind out that he wants to leave and he wants to get another job, are the FAI then happy to play second fiddle and just be, well, I didn't get that, so yeah, I'll stay with you. So I'm sure they'll have to have some strong conversations and try and sort it out between themselves, because it seems at the moment the situation is just, well, the FAI aren't really bothered if he's manager or not, and he's not really bothered if he stays or not. So it doesn't give you any confidence, going forward. You would, as a player, you're probably looking at it thinking, well, if we lose a couple and he doesn't fancy anymore, he might just leave, or the FAI might just get rid of him. So they need to come out and make a strong statement, either the FAI or Martin O'Neill, and either sign the contract or just go their separate ways, and then we can start looking forward again with a manager that the players can follow and know that they can trust that he's going to be there for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to you yesterday about it on air, wasn't I? And I'm personally of the opinion a little bit that I'm with Stephen Hunt. I have to think Stephen Hunt. I think he got it perfect from what he was saying. Basically saying, look, the players in general, you're out for yourself. You have to be selfish at top level sport. You have to be selfish, and I think in general the players, if everything's going right for a player and they're in the side and they're starting, they will not care. It's more the lads on the periphery that can maybe use that argument or use that against him to an extent. But in general, I don't think that'll be the case. I think players are just quite selfish and they're quite content just to get on with it. We'll see what the new players think when they come in, because there has to be new players that will be coming into the squad over the next few games. But personally, no, I don't see it being an issue.
One very last point is that Dunn there raised the potential that actually one of the reasons for the delay in the contract is maybe the FAI just aren't that bothered. Maybe post Denmark they're less sure of O'Neill. Now, Colin Young in the Sunday Independent reported that Delaney was on the phone to O'Neill on Saturday, trying to bring this thing back. So we don't know. Maybe Delaney felt there would be a lot of criticism of him personally, and that was one of the reasons he wanted to get O'Neill back. But what about this? And we don't know. Maybe he just wanted O'Neill for all the right reasons as well. What about the possibility that post Denmark the FAI were also less keen to sign this contract? Or do you think, given that they did the same thing in 2016, it wasn't signed from about May or June right through until October, that this is just their very lax attitude to a very important document, which would be the difference between 2 million potentially or nothing? Well,
yeah, you can maybe lax attitude, but I go back to the original point maybe before. Martin O'Neill has given his word, and that's what maybe they thought at the start of it. I don't buy into the fact. Buy into the fact is that he should have signed it. Yeah, how much time did they have? We're talking 3 months down the line here. So 3 months is a hell of a long time to agree in a contract and actually getting that contract signed. And it should have been signed. And I'm just saying more so from the FAI's point of view to protect themselves. Okay,
but do you think maybe they weren't bothered? Do you think maybe they were less keen on O'Neill? They were waiting to see.
No, I don't think that. I don't think that's the case, because they've not given any indication of the sort, have they? They've not given us any sort of message that they're not happy with what Martin O'Neill's done.
They're not going to come out and say we're not sure.
Yeah, but
they could sit in their hands and see what the mood is, or see who might be available.
I said it again. You could go over all ground from what I said to you yesterday, though. But the FAI still protect them. So even if they thought that, which I doubt it, but even if they did, they're still protecting themselves with some sort of compensation package by agreeing the deal.
But if they do, if they're not sure about him and they sign the contract, they might think, okay, look, well, the compensation issue is potentially one we'll get hammered over here. But if we sign a contract with him, we're stuck with him. Maybe they didn't want to be stuck with him.
No, I can't.
You don't think so?
I genuinely don't.
Okay.
Because you maybe mentioned the fact is the last time it happened prior to the Euros in 2016.
Yeah.
It was a few months after. So I think that agreement has been in place. So I think that they were under the impression that the same agreement works in ongoing contract negotiations. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Luke Edwards at 7:30. We will talk to Philip Quinn as well on the football show around 9:00. Katie Taylor then, Richie?
Yeah, she has had her proposed homecoming fight. It appears to be shelved. The 42.ie's Gavin Casey doing some great work on this, reporting that the WBA World Lightweight Champion will fight instead on the undercard to Daniel Jacobs' next outing in Brooklyn. That will be on April 28th. After Taylor defended her title in London last month, her promoter Eddie Hearn had claimed a Dublin unification bout would be the next most logical step. Hearn and Matchroom Boxing are yet to confirm the reported change of plan. Some news breaking in the past couple of moments. It appears as if Tommy Bowe has announced his retirement from rugby. He has tweeted in the past few minutes to say, "I've spent most of my career in Belfast. At first George said I wasn't very fast. I eventually found my gears, had some incredible years, but it's time to tell you that this will be my last." He recently was ruled out for 8 weeks with a shoulder injury, was the Ulster winger. He's twice a Lion, umpteen international caps to his name and 2 spells at Ulster as well. We'll bring you more on this one as the evening progresses. There's been countless tributes paid to Cyril Regis, who died today aged just 59. The former West Brom, Coventry and England striker is credited with breaking down racial boundaries in the late 70s when he was part of a West Brom side that contained Brendan Batson and Laurie Cunningham. Regis won 5 England caps and was an FA Cup winner with Coventry in 1987. One of his Coventry teammates on that famous victory over Spurs at Wembley was Dave Bennett.
He's always professional. He always wanted to speak to people. He never had a bad word to say about people. I think I've only seen him lose his temper once. I think that was someone trying to kick me. He thought he'll just look after me again. But that was the measure of the man. He always had time for you, always looked after you, and like I said, he's going to get a lot of accolades, and he deserves it, deservingly so, because he's opened doors for a lot of young black players today.
Kev, Cyril Regis was your coach.
Yeah, he was.
At West Brom.
Yeah, we used to know him as playing old Big C. I couldn't speak highly enough of him as well. When I first went to West Bromwich Albion, I was a young man, just moved for a record fee for West Bromwich Albion, become the first £1 million player, and I tell you, it took me a while to adjust to that. It was maybe in my head a little bit as well when I first signed there. And Cyril was the sort of coach that used to see maybe putting myself under sort of pressure a little bit at the time. He'd pull me to one side, he'd have a chat about a few things, and just to try to put me at ease. And he certainly did that. But also the stories he would tell, the stories he used to tell of racism through the 70s and 80s when he was playing. A brilliant man, a brilliant man, and I was gutted when I heard the news today, because I still would have spoke to Cyril over the years as well. He'd give me the odd call here and there. Right. He's now an agent as well, of course, or he was an agent, should I say? So he was just a great person in general, and I think the footballing world, a lot of, as maybe Dave Bennett said, there are a lot of young black footballers coming into the game have got the likes of Cyril Regis to be thankful for what he did in the game through that really tough period for him and black players who were playing at that time.
And did he talk to you much about that period and what he went through? And how did he feel about it all?
He actually used to laugh at it. He used to say, look, the lads that have faced a little bit of racism here and there now around the late 90s, he said, he just used to laugh about it. He said, look lads, you've never experienced what we had when we used to go down to some clubs, and we just used to be getting monkey chants throughout the game. And he said it was a constant. He said it wasn't as if when you're on the ball. He said he used to have Laurie Cunningham there as well playing out on the wing. He said he used to get dogs abused from start to finish, even from the warm-up. As soon as they come out for the warm-up, it was just a constant theme of racial abuse, predominantly when they were away from home, when they were away from the Hawthorns. And it does now show how far the game has come, and largely down to what Cyril did, the foundations that he probably put in place, trying to educate people and try to maybe make the game different. And for so many different players, I say, coming into the game, you only need to look at the likes of Andy Cole, Rio Ferdinand, Dean Dublin, all these lads that have been tweeting around it today. Mark Bright was another one I saw. They looked up to Cyril because Cyril was an icon, not just to black footballers, to white footballers as well, but more so just for what he did for black footballers. And he almost made it acceptable for a black footballer to come in and just feel at home in the dressing room, feel at ease on the pitch, and that was largely down to what Cyril did.
Okay. Ryan Giggs,
Yeah, he says he's tremendously proud and excited to be the new manager of Wales. The Manchester United legend has signed a 4-year contract to succeed Chris Coleman, and it's Giggs' first permanent job in management. And he says he's determined to bring an exciting and winning brand of football to the Welsh side. And he also says he's spoken to his former United manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, before taking this Wales job.
Yeah, I'd be stupid not to. Like you say, he's one of the greatest managers, if not the greatest manager that's ever lived. So, yeah, I've spoke to him over the last 24 hours. I'll speak to him in more depth. But also I want to be my own manager. And I'll take bits from managers that I've worked under, both at club level and international level. But I'm my own person.
The Giggs reaction to any player pulling out of a friendly will be interesting. I remember Giggs most vividly from a Welsh point of view as the guy who really set the precedent for openly disregarding friendlies.
Somebody pointed out to me earlier on, you've 65 international caps, I think they said to him, and I was like, geez, it seems an incredibly low amount for a player that was on the go for as long as Giggs was.
16, 17.
Even given the fact that he retired, I think 4 years before he actually gave up club football.
Yeah.
But he was asked that question today, you know, given your history as a player of pulling out friendlies and often brazenly so, how will you approach this? And he goes, well, I'm committed to the Wales job. I would want to see, you know, hopefully people will see through the way the side play and through the way I approach the job that I'm fully committed to things as they are now, and would hope that the players will be able to match that. But it's a huge thing to be able to ring up and go, listen, I'm looking for such and such for the UEFA Nation Leagues game with Turkey. Is there any chance? Nah, he wants to take a week to recover. It's a strange one.
Yeah, so we'll see how he gets on. I mean, he's been hunting around for a big job.
Yeah.
The Welsh FA are not afraid to give their former players with not much experience a go. They've made a habit of this, actually.
Yeah, they have,
of late. So it'll be very interesting to see what kind of manager Giggs makes. I know you're not a fan of him for... There's that thing with Giggs. It kind of comes up. I mean, it's not talked about, really.
I know.
But I know that you're not so sure about even you. Other players still would look at that and be not so sure about him.
I think he's got a great reputation within the game, hasn't he? Certainly from what he's achieved on the pitch. That's where I'd probably leave it. I'd feel. Okay. Would you want to go and talk to him on a personal matter? I don't know.
There's texting on the O'Neill situation. If Martin O'Neill gave his word, then why would he even talk with Stoke? Wonders Mike. Or Everton, for that matter. He reported over the weekend he talked to Everton as well before Allardyce got the job. Lads, do I have this right? The FAI were tied to an unsigned... That's the other thing, the FAI were tied to this as well. The FAI was tied to an unsigned contract that sits on the table somewhere, and Martin O'Neill is not, and can shop around. Surely that can't be. That's heads I win, tails you lose, says Tony. Brian, Richard Dunn and I don't have much in common. He's an athlete and a legend, and I'm not. But I totally agree with them on O'Neill. How can the players possibly row in behind him when it appears he's expressed a desire to get out of the Ireland picture? You've answered that. You think they will quick enough.
There'll be certain players that probably have that in their head, but I think in general, if results improve and you're getting results and the players are playing, in general, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
But as you know as well as I do, we all know that if results aren't going well, this will be thrown back at Martin O'Neill. It'll be thrown back at the FAI. Unless we now, it almost puts more pressure on getting results instantly now at the start of the next campaign. I know we've got a long time to that, but
he has this crutch as well, saying that he's going to rebuild the squad. So essentially you could have a high turnover of players either coming in and going out. So this will be, quote unquote, a new squad. So that issue mightn't necessarily be there. As long as the Ireland manager, the likes of Scott Hogan, Darrell Horgan, etc., will just have to accept it the way it is.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't take it, even if it is a short-term gig at Stoke. Go in, do a good job, you'll get a better contract. Because I would have thought he was so openly going for this. He was ignoring journalists on Friday night at the journalists' dinner. It was just so obvious that it seemed to me like he was cashing in his chips and saying, I'm going all out for this gig. I'm burning a few bridges, probably potentially with the Irish public or some of the fringe players.
The way we're looking at Paul Lambert now taking this Stoke job, would people have been looking at, not necessarily Irish people, would the English public, say, the English footballing public, be looking at Martin O'Neill the same way we're looking at Paul Lambert going, Jesus mate, you're clearly like second or third choice here, why are you taking this?
I think in general that is the perception, certainly from what he has done in his last few jobs.
Though, he would have known which way the wind was blowing earlier in the week. Like Flores was being mentioned as a number one guy. It seems that Peter Coates, the 80-year-old chairman, wanted O'Neill, and his son John wanted Flores. But like O'Neill could have come out earlier. Friday, for instance, would have been a good day and said, I've thought about it and I'm sticking.
I do think there's another element to this as well that we probably haven't really discussed as much as well. Martin O'Neill is incredibly loyal to his staff. Steve Walford, Steve Guppy, Seamus McDonough, of course Roy Keane does come into that as well. He has to think about those particularly those three, because if if he goes into to Stoke City on a short-term deal and it goes wrong and it doesn't necessarily work out the way he would like, they're out of a job in 6 months. Martin O'Neill's standing, he's still there, he could still pick up punditry work, he can still do other things as well. So I do think that Martin O'Neill, knowing what he has done, particularly when he's at Stoke, when he had John Robertson there with him as well, he thinks about his staff around him as well.
Okay.
And I think that has to be a consideration for him, yeah.
Okay, that maybe strengthens the argument that the contract length on offer at Stoke wasn't up to his liking. So, a final few stories, Rich. The Australian Open.
Yeah, Rafa Nadal needed just 94 minutes to reach the Australian Open second round. The 16-time Grand Slam winner beat Victor Estrella Burgos 6-1, 6-1, 6-1 this morning. There were also wins for the third seed Grigor Dimitrov and 6th seed Marin Cilic. Women's second seed Caroline Wozniacki, she was a straight sets winner over Mihaela Burzanescu. It was a wretched day though for the American seeds, with Venus Williams, the US Open champion Sloane Stephens and Coco Vandeweghe all crashing out. Williams beaten by the Swiss Belinda Bencic, whom she had beaten in straight sets in their 4 previous meetings, and Bencic also spent 5 months of last year out injured, so this morning's victory was doubly special.
It was amazing, this match. I think the level was great, and also she beat me 4 times before, so I was really happy took my chance this time. And obviously just happy to be back playing. It was a very, very long time when I was out, and I couldn't wait to come back, so it means a lot.
Not a great day for the Americans, but the French Open champion Elena Ostapenko and the 4th seed Elena Svitolina both found safe passage to round 2.
Cheers, Richie. That is our news round for this evening. Short break. We're talking to Luke Edwards of the Daily Telegraph, who broke the Martin O'Neill is staying story last night.
Off the Ball on Newstalk.
In association with the Air Sport app, allowing you to cast your favourite sporting action from your tablet or mobile phone straight to your TV.
Jump ahead in your career with a part-time or blended business degree from Griffith College. Apply now for our January intake at griffith.ie.
If your business can't afford to be waiting around for things to happen, let's fast forward to a time when My Taxi Business is helping you take control of your taxi account with online management tools to make the job of managing company expenses so much easier.
That was easy.
And when you need to get your staff from A to B in a jiffy, My Taxi has the largest taxi network in the country and the lowest wait times in the business, which can only be great news for yours. Talk to our business team today at business.mytaxi.ie.
With the AA's car insurance, you can now